Welcome back, focused learners. Today, we're diving straight into another explainer. And oh man, we are looking at one of the most iconic figures in all of world literature, Sun Wukong, the legendary Monkey King from the 16th century Chinese classic, Journey to the West. But we're not just going to sit here and recount the plot. Nope. Instead, we're framing his mythological journey as this epic, ever-escalating progression of unlocking powers. We're talking about treating this like the ultimate progression fantasy.
So it really begs the question, how exactly did one monkey acquire enough magic to defy heaven itself? Well, let's catalog his hilariously overpowered skill tree and these crazy stacked buffs. When you actually look at the source material, it becomes incredibly clear that Sun Wukong is basically one of the greatest examples of a character just constantly grinding for god-tier upgrades.
Let's kick things off with Phase 1, Innate Traits and Base Stats.
Even before any formal training, Wukong's base stats were absolutely off the charts. Just by being born from a magic stone egg sitting on top of the mountain of flowers and fruit, he was already stacked. That egg was nourished by the seeds of heaven and earth for literally millions of years. So right out of the gate, he has supernatural physical strength and immense agility. And get this, he even boasted literal beams of light shooting from his eyes when he was born. It's wild. But interestingly enough, those epic eye beams actually faded and dimmed once he started consuming earthly, mortal food. So to really level up, he needed to seek out actual magical training.
Which brings us to Phase 2, the Taoist Patriarch's Teachings.
So, Wukong enters his first major tutorial zone, studying under Patriarch Subodhi. And the first massive power he learns is the 72 earthly transformations, which is also known by the super hardcore name, the Multitude of Terrestrial Killers. This perk gives him endless utility. I mean, he can shapeshift his body into animals, insects, objects, or even entire buildings. He actually uses this all the time to shrink down into a tiny, hair-like insect to sneak around completely undetected. Plus, according to the lore, this allegedly grants him an extra life for each of the 72 transformations. It is just an incredible defensive and stealth upgrade to have.
Next up is a massive mobility upgrade. The sheer scale of his Cloud Somersault perk is just mind-blowing. The number here, 108,000 li, translates to roughly 33,554 miles. Literally, with a single leap and a somersault, he can travel that unbelievable distance. This mobility hack was so iconic that it directly inspired the character of Sun Goku and his flying Nimbus in the Dragon Ball series. How cool is that?
But of course, he didn't stop there. He also picked up the body beyond the body method. Basically, he can transform any of his 84,000 hairs into fighting clones, weapons, or items. He just plucks a hair, bites it, shouts change, and boom, it transforms. And this perfectly illustrates his sheer power because he literally boasts that a single hair can multiply into the millions and billions. He isn't just strong, he's quite literally a one-man army.
Moving on to Phase 3, Raiding the Dragon King.
Every leveled-up character needs high-level gear, right? So Wukong heads straight down to the Eastern Sea Dragon King's underwater palace and basically demands a weapon. He ends up acquiring this magic staff, the Ruyi Jingu Bang. Now, 13,500 Jin is nearly 18,000 pounds. The weight of this new weapon is just staggering. It was originally an iron rod used to measure the depth of the sea, and it can shrink all the way down to the size of a sewing needle, which he casually keeps tucked behind his ear, or it can grow to cosmic proportions and fill the entire universe.
But honestly, he didn't just take the staff. He essentially bullied the other Dragon Kings into dropping this legendary gear so he could complete his royal armor set. I mean, he walked away with a golden chainmail shirt, a phoenix feather cap, and these cloud-stepping boots made entirely of lotus fiber. He completely maximized his offensive capabilities and, let's be real, his aesthetics, all in one raid.
Now we enter Phase 4. Stacking immortality hacks.
So, Heaven tries to appease him by giving him a minor job, and Wukong just exploits the celestial system to break the game entirely. Most characters in mythology strive their whole lives for just one tiny taste of immortality. Sun Wukong, he stacked it at least 4 times over in this phase alone. First, he mastered the Taoist formula with his Patriarch. Second, while he was assigned to guard the Heavenly Peach Garden, he just sat there and ate the peaches of immortality. Third, he completely crashed a heavenly banquet and chugged the Jade Emperor's heavenly wine. And fourth, he just stumbled right into a lab and ate Lao-Tzu's pills of longevity like they were literal candy.
To give you a little context on just how overpowered this actually made him, check out this quote. The rarest tier of the heavenly peaches, the ones that only bloom every 9,000 years, grant the eater a lifespan eternal as heaven and earth, as long-lived as the sun and moon. Just eating one of those gave him ultimate cosmic durability. So all those extra pills and the wine he consumed, total absolute overkill.
Which leads us right into Phase 5, Forged in Heavenly Fire.
Because of all this massive rule-breaking, Heaven finally manages to capture him, and they attempt a final execution by throwing him into Laozi's 8-way trigram crucible for 49 days. But instead of destroying him, the crucible actually acted as a final refinement process. Before the crucible, he was highly resistant, but after, he emerges with a diamond body, complete with a copper head and iron limbs. His physical defense stats are now completely maxed out. He is entirely impervious to lightning, fire, and blades. Literally, later in the story, he survives decapitation and having his organs pulled out just because of how unbelievably tough he is.
He also walked out of there with a brand new visual perk from the Crucible smoke: fiery eyes, golden pupils. This truth-seeing ability lets him see straight through illusions and magical disguises to recognize evil spirits, and he can see up to 1,000 li away in the daylight. But, to balance out this incredibly powerful passive skill, it came with a minor debuff. The smoke from the Crucible permanently made his eyes highly sensitive to smoke moving forward. A small price to pay, really.
All right, here we are at Phase 6, Perks for the Final Journey. After being ultimately subdued by the Buddha and trapped under a mountain for 500 years, Wukong is eventually released to act as a bodyguard for the Tang monk on the actual journey to the west. Alongside all his previous powers, he uses this massive utility toolkit of hyper-specific situational spells and items to solve environmental hazards. The Bodhisattva Guanyin gives him 3 special life-saving hairs made from willow leaves for absolute emergencies. He uses a protective circle spell drawn with his staff to create this impassable iron-like barrier around his master. He even has a lock-breaking method that opens literally any lock instantly with just a point of his finger. Oh, and he uses fire and water avoidance charms too.
He just possesses a sheer volume of definite powers, neatly categorized into an overwhelming arsenal. For offense, he can multiply his staff to rain hundreds of thousands of weapons on enemies. For utility, he has this immobilization magic that can freeze gods and spirits in place for a whole day just by pointing and shouting freeze. And for mobility, he can use a spell called Shortening the Ground to teleport allies by literally contracting the land itself. It's crazy. He really does have a tool for absolutely every single encounter.
And finally, after protecting the monk through 81 tribulations, learning self-control, and using his powers for service rather than pure chaos, he gets his final reward, the ultimate unlock. At the very end of his journey, having completely mastered his wild impulses, his final level up is achieving spiritual enlightenment and the cosmic status of a Buddha. This cements his immortality for a final, unbreakable time.
From a stone egg to a fully enlightened Buddha with completely maxed out stats, Sun Wukong's progression is truly awe-inspiring. So, leaving you to ponder this massive mythical skill tree, I want you to ask yourself, if you could unlock just one of Wukong's legendary, game-breaking perks to conquer your own life's journey, which one would you choose? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.